Hello and welcome to China Biz. Now, with the European debt crisis showing few signs of resolution anytime soon, China has been hailed by some as a saviour of sorts, riding to the rescue and providing handouts to grateful recipients around the EU. But others argue that Europe must clean up its own mess and that financial assistance from China would not only mean throwing good money after bad, but would also unnecessarily prolong Europe's day of reckoning. Joining me now in the studio to discuss these issues, Santiago Iñiguez, the Dean of IE Business School over in Spain, and Andy Xie, former Chief Economist for Morgan Stanley for the Asia-Pacific region. Now, Santiago, if I could start with you, the IMF said last week it had doubled its lending capacity and received commitments of more than $430 billion US. Andy, you said in the past that giving money to the IMF is the worst idea possible. Santiago, what's your take?
Well, I guess this may give some more time to the politicians to do their homework. So what is now needed in Europe, across Europe, is more liquidity. So this may mean, more resources for both companies, the families. So it may help increase a little bit business across Europe. So if the governments are doing their homework, and we are seeing this in Greece, in Portugal, in Spain, in Ireland. We will see that in France as well. I guess that these measures probably will favor economic growth in the medium to long term.
Now, you mentioned France there, and of course we just had the French presidential election. It looks as if François Hollande may win the runoff on May the 6th against Nicolas Sarkozy. Do you think that would make a big difference to France, Andy?
I don't think so. I think Europeans still believe in defending status quo. They think that the debt trouble is a matter of liquidity. It's putting money here or there, and it will be solved. I think that the financial markets have no confidence in Europe. Mostly is because European economic model is in deep trouble and it's not competitive. And the economists talk about austerity versus growth. I think both miss the main thing. It's basically Europe has a deep structural problem, and without structural reforms, this thing will drag on for a long, long time.
Santiago, would you agree? I mean, people are saying that Hollande is going to raise pay for people, and he's going to make the retirement age earlier, and also shorten the working week. This could have some significant effects, don't you think?
No, but I think that governments, including the Hollande government in the future, if he finally wins the election, they are doing their homework. And in fact, in Europe, across the board, all the governments are taking measures in order to reform labor markets, deregulate many industries, cut budgets. So in time, we will see that many economies across Europe will probably improve. In fact, what the IMF has just done is what Obama's government did some time ago. So what is needed is not just cutting the expenses, reform the industries, taking all these necessary measures, but also inject some liquidity. It's a kind of balance.
Well, I think that the issue is financial markets have no confidence. You look at Greece after this massive haircut for bondholders, like a 50% nominal value and 70% in terms of net present value. The country is still not out of trouble. So I think that the politicians are behaving the way they are in Europe is because that people do not believe that it's their problem. And this is what distinguishes European crisis from the Asian financial crisis in '98. I remember that in '98, everybody took it personally. But in Europe, it's still, people do not believe that. So politicians are not telling people the truth. And Europe must liberalize the labor market. If they do not do that, the financial markets will never give them the free path. No matter how much liquidity you put in, no matter how much money IMF puts in, whatever respite they have is going to be temporary.
From a Chinese perspective, though, how much is China's fate tied to that of Europe?
Europe is a bigger trading partner than the United States. So obviously, Europe is very important. So there's an argument that China should help Europe, so it helps China. indirectly, but I don't believe that this is the right strategy. Whatever amount of money you put into Europe, it just delays the inevitable.
Andy, you're fairly pessimistic there. Santiago, what's your view?
Well, I endorse your words. I mean, we live in a global world, so whatever happens in Europe will affect the Chinese economy. So it would be in the interest of China that there's liquidity in the European market. But anyway, I strongly disagree about the diagnosis. I think that governments across Europe are doing their homework. This is taking place in Spain, where the government, supported by a vast majority of citizens, absolute majority, is doing its homework in terms of reforms in the labor markets, reforms in the financial industry. So I would rather, think how to solve the European crisis as fast as possible, but we have many more advantages than many other countries at this stage.
Now, looking more generally at the difference in the mindsets between people in Europe and the Chinese, it's perhaps a stereotype to say that the Chinese are known to be very hardworking, the Europeans inherently more lazy. Do you think that's fair?
I don't think that's fair. Europeans probably have come to develop a good balance between professional and private life. But countries like France, which enjoys a very small week-hour schedule, has one of the highest productivity ratios in the world. So it's a question of productivity, not a question of how long are the working hours every day.
There is no doubt that the future of Europe depends very much on Italy. Italy has not grown for 15 years. And the labor market issue in Europe, I think it's unfair to say Europeans are lazy. The labor market rules limit how much people can work. The European crisis must be resolved through structural reforms to make the pie bigger. And this pie will not become bigger like what American economists are suggesting. You should stimulate the pie will become bigger. It absolutely doesn't work. If you stimulate in Europe, it will become inflation. So,
no, but I completely endorse that idea about the need of bringing in more flexibility in the labor markets. But without freedom for creativity, there's no innovation. And that's why Italy, even if it has one of the lowest productivity ratios now in Europe, still produces cars like the Lamborghini that has been presented today at the auto fair here in Beijing.
What do you think some of the other political, legal and structural differences are between China and Europe, other than some of the regulations in terms of labour working environment that Andy's talked about?
In sectors like finance or telecom or renewable energy, I guess that China is going very fast in terms of opening its markets, and it's introducing the necessary changes in the law, in the copyright, for example, law, in order to adapt to global competition. So in fact, China is quickly ascending positions in the global ranking, and I think that Chinese leaders are increasingly aware about their global mission, that being, a leader also carries its own responsibilities.
China, a lot of people believe China's strength is the government. That's absolutely wrong. You look at the Chinese universities, now they are more international, but they have gone backwards in terms of quality, in terms of teaching quality, teachers' quality, and students' quality, and everything is going backwards. But the reason is because that China's this vast economy is due to people's productivity, people in the factories, on the construction sites. They've produced this economy. There's this get-rich culture going on. It's to do redistribution of wealth through creating bubbles, printing money, government power. And so the elite in China are in this game of acquiring as much wealth as quickly as possible, including the education institutions. So this is where I think that China's a lot of problems you point out is not something that you can solve gradually, or it's going to become gradually better and so forth. I do not believe that kind of view. I think that it's due to the fundamental nature of the system, and it changes only because there's some bigger political change. It's the system change. It's just like in Europe. I do not believe in that you give more money and you gradual change. People must understand it's their crisis, then they take actions, then there's a solution.
Andy, Santiago, thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
That's all for today's China Biz. I'm Mark Dreyer. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.